Hey there, welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here today because we're going to talk about something that can truly change your life. We're going to learn how to talk to anyone. Yes, anyone. Whether you're meeting someone new at a party, starting a conversation with a stranger at a coffee shop, or trying to make a good impression at work, this skill is going to help you so much. And the best part? It's not as hard as you think. I promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to feel more confident about talking to people. So grab a cup of coffee or tea, get comfortable, and let's dive right in. I used to be so nervous about talking to new people. My heart would beat fast, my hands would get sweaty, and I would think, what if I say something stupid? What if they don't like me? What if the conversation gets awkward and we just stand there in silence? I'm sure many of you have felt this way too. It's totally normal. But here's the thing I learned over the years. Most people feel the same way. Everyone is a little nervous about meeting new people. Everyone worries about saying the right thing. So when you realize that the other person is probably just as nervous as you are, it becomes a lot easier. You're not alone in this feeling. Now, before we get into the practical tips and techniques, I want you to understand something important. Talking to anyone is not about being perfect. It's not about having the perfect words or the perfect jokes. It's about being yourself, being genuine, and showing interest in other people. That's really all it takes. When you're real and when you care about what the other person has to say, conversations flow naturally. So don't put too much pressure on yourself, okay? Just be you. That's more than enough. Let's start with the very first step, which is making a good first impression. You've probably heard the saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And it's true. The first few seconds of meeting someone are really important. But don't worry, making a good first impression is not about being fake or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about showing up with positive energy and being open. So how do you make a good first impression? Well, it starts with your body language. Before you even say a single word, your body is already talking. If you're standing with your arms crossed, looking down at your phone, or avoiding eye contact, you're sending a message that says, I don't want to talk, I'm not interested. But if you stand up straight, smile, and make eye contact, you're saying, I'm friendly, I'm approachable, I'm happy to meet you. See the difference? Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you walk into a room full of people you don't know. Maybe it's a work event or a friend's birthday party. You feel nervous, right? Your first instinct might be to look at your phone or find a corner to stand in. But instead, try this. Walk in with your head up, smile at a few people, and make yourself look open and friendly. You don't have to talk to anyone right away. Just being present and looking approachable will make people more likely to come talk to you. And when someone does approach you, you'll feel more confident because you've already set the tone with your body language. Now let's talk about eye contact. This is so important, but a lot of people struggle with it. If you avoid eye contact, you might seem shy, uninterested, or even untrustworthy. But if you make good eye contact, you show that you're engaged and that you care about the conversation. Now, I'm not saying you should stare at someone without blinking. That would be weird. But when you're talking to someone, try to look at them for a few seconds, then look away naturally, and then look back again. It's a balance. You want to show interest without making the other person uncomfortable. Here's a little trick I learned. If looking someone directly in the eyes feels too intense for you, try looking at the space between their eyes or at their eyebrows. It gives the same impression of eye contact, but it might feel a little easier for you. Give it a try and see how it feels. Another key part of making a good first impression is your smile. A genuine smile is one of the most powerful tools you have. It makes you look warm, friendly, and approachable. And the best part? Smiles are contagious. When you smile at someone, they almost always smile back. It's like magic, but make sure your smile is real. People can tell when you're faking it. Think about something that makes you happy. Think about how good it feels to connect with someone new, and let that happiness show on your face. Okay, now that we've covered body language, let's move on to actually starting a conversation. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They think, what do I say? How do I start? Well, the good news is that starting a conversation is much easier than you think. You don't need a clever pick-up line, or a brilliant opening. You just need something simple and genuine. One of the easiest ways to start a conversation is with a simple greeting and a smile. Just say, "Hi, how are you?" or "Hello, nice to meet you." It's that simple. Most people will respond positively, and from there you can continue the conversation. But let's say you want to go beyond the basic greeting. Let's say you want to start a conversation with someone you don't know at all. Maybe you're at a coffee shop, or waiting in line somewhere, or sitting next to someone on a bus. What do? Here's a great technique. Make an observation or a comment about your shared environment. For example, if you're at a coffee shop and someone is ordering the same drink as you could say, "Oh, you're getting the caramel latte too. It's so good, right?" Or if you're at a bookstore and you see someone looking at a book you've read, you could say, "That's a great book. Have you read it before?" These kinds of comments are easy, natural, and they give the other person an opening to respond. They don't feel forced or awkward. You're just making a friendly observation. Another great way to start a conversation is to ask for help or advice. People love to feel helpful, and asking for their opinion is a great way to break the ice. For example, if you're at a restaurant, you could ask the person next to you, "Have you been here before? What do you recommend?" Or if you're at a conference or event, you could say, "This is my first time here. Do you know what session is happening next?" Questions like these are non-threatening, easy to answer, and they open the door for more conversation. Now, let's talk about one of the most important skills in conversation, which is asking good questions. If you want to talk to anyone and have great conversations, you need to become good at asking questions. Why? Because questions show that you're interested in the other person. They keep the conversation going, and they help you learn about the person you're talking to, but not all questions are created equal. Some questions lead to short, boring answers, and some questions open up the conversation and make it more interesting. Let me explain. There are two types of questions: closed questions and open questions. Closed questions are questions that can be answered with just yes or no. For example, "Do you like your job? Did you have a good weekend? Are you from around here?" These questions are okay, but they don't give the other person much room to share. They might just say yes or no, and then the conversation dies. Open questions, on the other hand, are questions that require more than a yes or no answer. They invite the other person to share more about themselves. For example, instead of asking, "Do you like your job?" you could ask, "What do you like most about your job?" Instead of asking, "Did you have a good weekend?" you could ask, "What did you do this weekend?" See the difference? Open questions encourage the other person to talk more, and that's what you want. Here are some great open questions you can use in almost any conversation. What do you do for fun? What's the best trip you've ever taken? What are you working on right now? How did you get into your line of work? What's something you're excited about these days? These questions are simple, but they're powerful. They show that you care about the other person's life and experiences, and they give them a chance to share something meaningful. But here's the thing: asking questions is not enough. You also need to listen. Really listen. And this is where a lot of people struggle. We live in a world full of distractions. We're always thinking about the next thing we need to do, or we're waiting for our turn to talk. But if you want to be great at conversation, you need to practice active listening. Active listening means giving the other person your full attention. It means putting away your phone, making eye contact, and really focusing on what they're saying. It means not interrupting and not thinking about what you're going to say next while they're still talking. When you listen actively, the other person feels valued. They feel heard. And that makes them want to keep talking to you. It also makes the conversation so much more enjoyable for both of you. So how do you show that you're listening? Well, there are a few simple things you can do. First, use body language. Nod your head, lean in slightly, and make eye contact. These small gestures show that you're engaged. Second, use verbal cues. Say things like, "Oh, really? That's interesting. I see. These little responses let the other person know that you're paying attention. And third, ask follow-up questions. If someone tells you they went on a trip to Italy, don't just say, "Cool," and then change the subject. Ask them, "What was your favorite part of Italy? What did you do there? Did you try any amazing food?" Follow-up questions show that You're truly interested in what they're saying. Let me share a quick story with you. A few years ago, I was at a networking event. I didn't know anyone there, and I felt really nervous. I saw a woman standing by herself, so I walked up to her and said, "Hi, I'm new here. Have you been to one of these events before?" She smiled and said yes, and we started chatting. I asked her what she did for work, and she told me she was a graphic designer. Instead of just saying, "Oh, that's cool," and moving on, I asked her, "What kind of projects do you work on? What do you love most about design?" And she lit up. She started telling me about this project she was working on, and I could see how passionate she was about it. We talked for almost 30 minutes, and by the end of the conversation, I had made a real connection. And you know what? I didn't have to say much about myself. I just asked questions and listened. That's the power of good questions and active listening. Now let's talk about something that makes a lot of people nervous. Awkward silences. You know what I'm talking about, right? Those moments in a conversation where no one is talking and you start to panic. You think, "Oh no, what do I say now? This is so awkward." But here's the truth. Awkward silences are only awkward if you make them awkward. If you stay calm and relaxed, a pause in the conversation is totally fine. It's normal. People need time to think. Sometimes a little silence is just a natural part of the conversation. But if you want to avoid long, uncomfortable silences, here are a few tips. First, always have a few go-to topics in your back pocket. These are topics you can bring up if the conversation starts to slow down. Some good ones are travel, food, hobbies, weekend plans, or something interesting you saw or read recently. For example, you could say, "So, have you traveled anywhere fun recently?" Or, "I just watched this really interesting documentary. Have you seen anything good lately?" These kinds of questions can help restart the conversation. Second, don't be afraid to acknowledge the silence in a light, humorous way. If there's a pause and you're both smiling awkwardly, you could just laugh and say, "Okay, I'm blanking on what to say next. Do you have any fun plans coming up?" Being honest and a little playful can actually make the moment less awkward. It shows that you're human and that you don't take yourself too seriously. And third, remember that it's okay to end a conversation. Not every conversation needs to go on forever. If you've been talking to someone for a while and the conversation is naturally winding down, it's perfectly fine to say, "It was so nice talking to you. I'm going to grab another drink, but I hope we can chat again soon." Or, "I really enjoyed our conversation. Let's stay in touch." Ending a conversation gracefully is a skill too, and it leaves a positive impression. All right, let's talk about another important part of conversation, sharing about yourself. So far, we've focused a lot on asking questions and listening to the other person. And that's super important. But a conversation is a two-way street. If you only ask questions and never share anything about yourself, the other person might feel like they're being interviewed. They might wonder, "Why isn't this person telling me anything?" So you need to find a balance. You need to share about yourself too. But here's the key. When you share, try to share things that are interesting, relatable, or relevant to the conversation. You don't want to dominate the conversation with long stories about yourself. You want to add to the conversation in a way that keeps it flowing. For example, if someone tells you they went hiking last weekend, you could say, "Oh, I love hiking. I went to this trail last month, and the views were amazing. Have you done any other trails in the area?" See how you shared something about yourself, but you also asked a question to keep the conversation going? That's the sweet spot. Another tip is to share things that are a little bit personal, but not too personal. You want to be open and authentic, but you don't want to overshare, especially when you're just getting to know someone. Talking about your hobbies, your interests, your work, or your weekend plans is great. But talking about really deep, heavy topics like your health problems, your difficult breakup, or your financial struggles might be too much for a first conversation. Save those topics for when you know the person better and there's more trust. And here's something I think is really important. When you share about yourself, try to be positive. I'm not saying you have to pretend everything is perfect. Life is hard sometimes, and it's okay to be real about that. But if you're constantly complaining or talking about negative things, it can bring the mood down. People are drawn to positive energy. They want to be around people who make them feel good. So try to focus on the things you're excited about, the things you're grateful for, or the things that make you happy. That doesn't mean you can't talk about challenges or struggles. Just try to balance it with some positivity too. Let's talk about something that can really help you connect with people: finding common ground. When you find something you have in common with someone, the conversation becomes so much easier and more enjoyable. It's like you instantly have something to bond over. So how do you find common ground? Well, it starts with paying attention. Listen to what the other person is saying. What are they interested in? What do they care about? And then see if there's any overlap with your own interests or experiences. For example, let's say you're talking to someone and they mention they love reading. You could say, "Oh, me too. What kind of books do you like?" And then you can talk about your favorite books, recommend books to each other, and maybe even discover a new author. Or let's say someone mentions they have a dog. If you also have a dog, or if you love dogs, you could say, "I have a dog too. What kind of dog do you have?" And then you can swap dog stories and show each other pictures. It's such an easy way to connect. But what if you don't have anything in common with the person? What if they're talking about something you know nothing about? Well, that's actually a great opportunity too. You can use it as a chance to learn something new. Show curiosity and ask them to tell you more. For example, if someone says they're really into rock climbing and you've never done it, you could say, "I've never tried rock climbing. What's it like? Is it scary? How did you get into it?" People love talking about their passions, and when you show genuine interest, they'll appreciate it. Plus, you might learn something cool that you didn't know before. Now, I want to talk about something that I think is one of the most underrated skills in conversation: compliments. Giving someone a genuine compliment is such a simple way to make them feel good and to build a connection. But here's the thing: it has to be genuine. People can tell when you're just saying something to be nice versus when you really mean it. So when you give a compliment, make sure it's sincere. There are a lot of different kinds of compliments you can give. You can compliment someone's appearance like, "I love your shoes," or "That color looks great on you." But you can also compliment someone's skills, their ideas, or their personality. For example, you could say, "You explain that so clearly. You're really good at teaching." Or, "I love how positive you are. You always make me feel better." These kinds of compliments can be even more meaningful because they're about who the person is, not just how they look. And here's a little tip. When someone gives you a compliment, don't brush it off or deflect it. Just say thank you and accept it graciously. If someone says, "I love your dress," don't say, "Oh, this old thing? I got it on sale." Just say, "Thank you. That's so nice of you to say." Accepting compliments with grace makes the other person feel good about giving them, and it shows that you value their kind words. All right, let's talk about humor. Humor is such a powerful tool in conversation. When you can make someone laugh, it breaks the ice, it makes the conversation more fun, and it helps people relax. But I know that humor can be tricky. Not everyone feels naturally funny, and that's okay. You don't have to be a comedian to use humor in conversation. You just need to be lighthearted and not take yourself too seriously. One of the easiest ways to add humor to a conversation is through self-deprecating jokes. This is when you gently make fun of yourself. For example, if you spill your coffee, you could laugh and say, "Well, that's my coordination for the day." Or if you forget someone's name, you could say, "I'm so sorry, I'm terrible with names. I promise I'll remember it this time." Self-deprecating humor shows that you're humble and that you don't take yourself too seriously. Just be careful not to overdo it. You don't want to put yourself down too much or make people uncomfortable. Another way to add humor is to notice funny things in your environment and comment on them. For example, if you're at a restaurant and the menu has a really strange item, you could joke about it. Or if there's a funny sign or a silly situation happening around you, you can point it out and share a laugh with the person you're talking to. Humor doesn't have to be complicated. It's just about being present and finding the light, funny moments in everyday life. But here's an important reminder. Be careful with jokes that might offend people. Avoid humor that makes fun of someone's race, gender, religion, or appearance. What might seem funny to you could be hurtful to someone else. And when you're first getting to know someone, you don't know their background or what they might be sensitive about, so keep your humor light, positive, and inclusive. If you're ever unsure whether a joke is okay, it's better to skip it. Now, let's talk about something that I think is so important but often overlooked: being present in the conversation. I mentioned this earlier when we talked about active listening, but it's worth repeating. When you're talking to someone, be there, fully. Don't let your mind wander. Don't check your phone. Don't look around the room to see who else is there. Give the person in front of you your full attention. I know this can be hard, especially in our world today where we're constantly distracted by technology. But think about how it feels when someone is really present with you. When they put their phone away, look you in the eye, and really listen to what you're saying. It feels amazing, right? It makes you feel valued and important. That's the gift you can give to other people. Be present, be there, and watch how much it improves your conversations. Let's talk about something that might be challenging for some of you: talking to people who are different from you. Maybe they're from a different culture, a different generation, or they have different beliefs or experiences than you do. It can feel intimidating, but it's also such a great opportunity to learn and grow. The key is to approach these conversations with an open mind and genuine curiosity. If you're talking to someone from a different culture, don't be afraid to ask questions about their background or traditions. Most people are happy to share about their culture, as long as you're asking in a respectful and curious way. You could say something like, "I don't know much about your culture. Would you mind telling me a little bit about it?" Or, "I heard you celebrate this holiday. What's it like?" Questions like these show that you're interested in learning, not judging. And if you're talking to someone who has different opinions or beliefs than you do, try to stay open and respectful. You don't have to agree with everything they say, but you can still listen and try to understand where they're coming from. You could say, "That's an interesting perspective. I've never thought about it that way before. Can you tell me more?" This approach keeps the conversation respectful and allows both of you to learn from each other. Remember, the goal of conversation is not always to agree. Sometimes it's just to understand. Now, I want to give you some specific tips for different types of conversations. Let's start with small talk. A lot of people don't like small talk. They think it's boring or fake. But here's the thing: small talk is actually really important. It's the gateway to deeper conversations. It's how you break the ice and start building a connection with someone. So don't dismiss it. Embrace it. Good topics for small talk include the weather, weekend plans, recent events, travel, food, and entertainment. For example, you could say, "Can you believe how hot it's been lately?" Or, "Do you have any fun plans for the weekend?" Or, "Have you seen any good movies lately?" These topics are safe, easy, and they give the other person something to respond to. And once you've done a bit of small talk, you can naturally transition to deeper, more interesting topics. Now let's talk about networking conversations. If you're at a work event or a professional gathering, the conversation might feel a little more formal. But the same principles apply. Be friendly, ask good questions, and show genuine interest in the other person. Some good questions for networking include, "What brings you to this event? What do you do for work? What are you working on right now?" And don't forget to talk about yourself too. Be ready to explain what you do in a clear and interesting way. And always exchange contact information if you want to stay in touch. You could say, "I'd love to keep in touch. Can I get your email or LinkedIn?" What about deeper, more meaningful conversations? These are the conversations where you really get to know someone. You talk about your dreams, your fears, your values, and your experiences. These conversations don't happen right away. They usually happen after you've built some trust and rapport with someone. But when they do happen, they're so rewarding. They're the conversations that turn acquaintances into friends. To have deeper conversations, you need to be willing to be vulnerable. You need to share something real about yourself, and you need to create a safe space for the other person to do the same. You could start by saying something like, "Can I be honest with you?" Or, "I've been thinking a lot about this lately." And then share something that's meaningful to you. When you open up, it gives the other person permission to open up too. And that's when the real connection happens. All right, let's talk about some common mistakes people make in conversation so you can avoid them. The first mistake is talking too much about yourself. We've all met that person who just goes on and on about themselves and never asks any questions or shows interest in you. Don't be that person. Remember, conversation is a two-way street. Share about yourself, but also ask questions and listen. Another common mistake is interrupting. I know it's easy to get excited and want to jump in with your own story or opinion, but interrupting is rude. It makes the other person feel like you don't care about what they're saying. So practice patience. Wait for them to finish before you start talking. A third mistake is being negative or complaining too much. Like I said earlier, people are drawn to positive energy. If all you do is complain, people won't want to be around you. Try to focus on the positive, even when things are hard. And finally, don't fake it. Don't pretend to be someone you're not just to impress someone. People can sense when you're being fake, and it's a turn-off. Just be yourself. Be real, be authentic. That's what people are really looking for. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give you some final tips and encouragement. First, practice makes perfect. The more you talk to people, the easier it gets. So don't avoid social situations. Put yourself out there. Start conversations. Even if it feels scary at first, it will get easier over time. I promise. Second, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everyone says the wrong thing sometimes. Everyone has awkward moments. It's okay. Laugh it off and keep going. The more you worry about being perfect, the harder it will be to connect with people. Third, remember that most people are just as nervous as you are. They want to connect. They want to have good conversations. So when you approach someone with kindness and genuine interest, they'll almost always respond positively. And finally, be kind to yourself. Building conversation skills takes time. Don't beat yourself up if you don't feel like a natural conversationalist right away. Just keep trying, keep learning, and keep being yourself. You've got this. Okay, let's do a quick recap of everything we've talked about today. To talk to anyone, start by making a good first impression with positive body language, eye contact, and a genuine smile. Begin conversations with simple greetings or observations about your shared environment. Ask open-ended questions that invite the other person to share more. Practice active listening by giving your full attention, using body language and asking follow-up questions. Find a balance between asking questions and sharing about yourself. Look for common ground to build connection. Give genuine compliments. Use humor to make conversations more fun. Be present and avoid distractions. Approach conversations with people who are different from you with curiosity and respect. Embrace small talk as the gateway to deeper conversations. And most importantly, be yourself. I really hope this video has helped you feel more confident about talking to anyone. Remember, conversation is a skill, and like any skill, you can learn it and improve it with practice. You don't have to be the most outgoing person in the room. You don't have to be the funniest or the smartest. You just have to be genuine, be kind, and be interested in other people. When you do that, conversations will flow naturally, and you'll build real connections with the people around you. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more English learning content. And let me know in the comments, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to talking to people? I'd love to hear from you. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Take care and remember you're amazing. Go out there and have some great conversations.